Oh, and that's a brilliant effort. And they've turned it right around. In the space of a few minutes, Saudi Arabia grab control of the game.
Welcome to episode 12 of Dawri, the Saudi football podcast. After a week, we could argue, is one of the most significant in the history of the game for the kingdom. With me, as always, is Arab News sports editor Ali Khaled to discuss the latest action on the pitch. And oh, what action it is. And, of course, the latest developments of it. Of course, in addition, we have our man Khaled Alarafah to give us his latest report from the Riyadh Jeddah Classico. Okay, but Ali, there's only one place to start this week, so take it away.
Hi, Peter. Good to be back, mate. Yes, of course. On October 31st, it was all but confirmed that Saudi Arabia will host the 2034 World Cup.
Wow.
After Australia. Yeah, I mean, Australia, the only other candidates withdrew from the bidding process on deadline day. This is, of course, massive news for Saudi Arabia and for Arab football. The World Cup will be returning to the region 12 years after it was held in Qatar, you know. Look, we must highlight, however, that this is not an official confirmation yet. It is pending a ratification of the bid by FIFA in the coming months. We expect it possibly by the end of the year. Saudi officials, while delighted, of course, have been keen to pinpoint that. You know, that there are still a process to go through here. You know, they will, obviously about and many things to discuss. You know, stadiums. The timing of the World Cup as well. Obviously, we know that in Qatar it was Winter World Cup. Again, you know, quite a lot to discuss. But I mean, look, it's fantastic news. All things going to plan. This should Saudi Arabia should be confirmed. And again, fantastic news. But look, it's part of, like, obviously the big. It's the end point, I suppose, of like. Or a massive endpoint for what's been going on in Saudi football, the football revolution, we've been calling it. We know about the influx of top stars joining the SPL. Of course, that's brought a lot of eyes onto Saudi football in a way, and a legitimacy that, maybe wasn't there before. There is the FIFA Club World Cup in Jeddah, which takes place in this December. So again, that's a pretty big step. And the AFC Asian Cup in 2027 to look forward to as well. That's look, I wouldn't say it's a trial run for the World Cup because it's still some years away, and also it's a huge tournament in its own right. But it's a chance for Saudi Arabia to start building up like the infrastructure, the stadiums, having these massive tournaments, bringing the world to Saudi Arabia for these big tournaments. The players that come here, the fans that come to Saudi Arabia, I should say, that go to Saudi Arabia, the teams, will get to. We'll get a taste of the facilities, of the stadiums, of the culture of the football that's in Saudi Arabia. Great news all around. Obviously this is a story that we'll be following very closely. And as we said, still pending a ratification, but that should come in the coming months.
It's interesting what you say, Ali, but it's a chance to, for the kingdom to sample big tournament life. And, again, with tourism, it's such an epic time to be a part of this journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, we know over the last few years, sporting and cultural revolution that's happening in Saudi Arabia, has brought a lot of big events. We've spoken about motorsports, in particular Dakar, the Grand Prix Formula E. There's a lot of that. There's the Saudi Cup horse racing. We've spoken about all the golf tournaments and all that, but and obviously this summer's transfer window and Cristiano Ronaldo coming out has taken football to a whole new level. But we have to remember that before any of these big sporting events happened, football was the one constant, was the one was always Saudi's biggest sport anyway. And now, but as you mentioned, it's a good point that perhaps there hasn't been that many tournaments that took place in Saudi, and now that's changing and changing fast. So, yeah.
Changing for the better. Okay, listen, hate to bring everyone back down to earth because we're dreaming of World Cups and major tournaments and visitors, but we do have to get back and roll our sleeves up, Ali, and get on with a bit of domestic duty, because there was a lot of action last week. What was your highlights?
Yeah, so on our last pod we had discussed, because our last episode came in the middle of a round of matches. We had discussed Champions Al-Ittihad's recent disappointing form. They had just drawn 2-2 with Al-Hazm, but following that, there was no let-up from the two informed teams at the moment, Al-Nasr and leaders Al-Ittihad. Al-Nasr won 3-1 at Faiha, which is not an easy game, Pete. Like, I know people at Faiha, it's not an easy place to go to. So that was a really good result for Al-Nasr. 2 goals from the old boy Talisca and 1 by new boy Otavio. Talisca has been in wonderful form. He's been absolutely brilliant, alongside Cristiano Ronaldo and Sadio Mane, of course. And Al-Nasr, having started the season with 2 defeats, are now in second place. As we said, like last week, we predicted that there's a good chance they're going to end the weekend in second place, and they have. It's now 9 without defeat, 8 wins in 9. Fantastic form by Al-Nasr. Obviously, Cristiano Ronaldo is flying at the moment. Talisca's playing brilliantly. Sadio Mane is chipping in with assists and goals. It's looking very, very good for Al-Nasr. But Al-Hilal remain top after beating Al-Ahli 3-1 in that much-discussed Saudi Classico. We spoke about it at length last week, and it lived up to the hype. An excellent match, which our man Khaled was at, and we spoke to Khaled Alarafah earlier about it.
Hi, Ali. Hi, Peter. How are you guys? Another Classico took place this week. This time it was Al-Hilal against Al-Ahli in Riyadh, in an amazing match with a lot of goals. Al-Hilal won 3-1. Thanks to Savic. He was the man of the match. He scored the first goal in the first minute. Then Mitrovic scored from a penalty kick. And the third goal for Al-Hilal, it was an own goal by the defender of Al-Ahli. Al-Ahli's goal came by Maximan. It was a tough game. We were expecting a lot, honestly, from Al-Ahli, but this is the way it is. I did an interview with Mendy, the goalkeeper of Al-Ahli. I asked him about the result and if he has any explanation about that. He said, we had our plan. Unfortunately, we could not start the match with our plan. Everything changed. The first goal changed everything. We were trying, but the third goal just killed the match. We need to focus more. We need to do a lot of work to come back. We need to fight in the field. At the end of the day, it was such a great day for Al-Hilalis and a bad day for Al-Ahli. But as a Classico, Ali, it was really one of the best Classicos so far, including Al-Ahli and Al-Nasr and Al-Hilal Al-Ittihad. Until the next week, Ali, I'll get back to you.
Thanks to Khaled, as always. Ali, would you say the table and the title fight maybe is starting to take shape now?
Yeah, look, I mean, certainly the two most consistent teams are in first and second at the moment. We can't rule out champions at Al-Ittihad just yet at this stage of the season, but Nuno Santo is under a bit of pressure now. And if you ask most fans, they'll agree that it looks like this season is developing into a 2-horse race between Al-Hilal and Al-Nasr. Look, they're clearly the two informed teams, as we mentioned, and if you had to pick, I mean, most people would pick one of those two. Al-Ittihad had a lot of backers at the start of the season, but it has been very, very inconsistent from them. Al-Ahli with the best will in the world, like we say, the top 4. They are great to watch. We love watching them. We love their forward line, but they had just come up, so not really one of the favorites, would say. I would say at the moment Al-Hilal and Al-Nasr are the two. But, we talk about like the table taking shape, Pete, and it certainly is. But, and this is very important here, once again, we have to mention the sensational seasons that Al-Ta'awun and Al-Fatah are having. Now they are in third and fourth, respectively. We've spoken about Al-Ta'awun quite a lot. Al-Fatah, are in fourth place. These two are the real feel-good stories of the season so far. So it's great to see as well.
Good for the league as well, to be fair, to push our
Absolutely.
boys that, let's say, are much fancied boys, but it's great to see them being pushed. Listen, AK, there was also action in round 16, last 16 of the King's Cup in midweek.
Yeah, no major surprises, Peter. I mean, Al-Hilal cruised past Al-Hazm 3-0. Al-Shabaab beat Al-Fatih 1-0. Again, you'd expect them possibly to do that at home. Al-Ittihad, we've spoken about their poor league form, but they put that behind them. They won 3-0 at Al-Fayha, which again we said, wasn't easy. So that's a good result. I think takes a little bit of pressure off the team and coach Nuno Santo. And Al-Ta'awan beat Al-Wahda 2-0. But most eyes probably on Al-Nasr against Al-Ittifaq, which ended up being a really good game, Pete. A stormy match, if you want. A lot of controversy. Sadio Mane scored the goal in extra time in the 107th minute, despite Al Nassr playing with 10 men after Talisca sending off in the first half. First half stoppage time, actually. But Ittifaq, played the second half with a man advantage. But they had a player, Ali Hazazi, sent off right at the end of the match. It was a decision that left Steven Gerrard really unhappy. He was very unhappy in his press conference. He actually said...
He wasn't the only one, was he?
No, he wasn't. It was a strange...
Did I see Mr. Ronaldo asking for a substitution of the referee?
No. I mean, it was... Gerrard was basically saying... since he started as a player, this was one of the worst decisions he's ever seen, which is a big statement, but shows how angry he was. And he's actually, the morning after the match, he hasn't let it go. He's saying like, I'd like to hear what happened in VAR to come to that decision. So, not happy. But look, I mean, we expected Al Nassr to win, possibly at home, but. Just because that was what was expected, doesn't mean that it was not a controversial decision.
As a man who knows the rivalry well, and I'm gonna defer across the globe, did that particular fixture carry a little bit of Liverpool-Manchester United grudge?
It could be. I mean, I know like they're all some of these players, certainly probably Gerrard and the Liverpool contingent, and probably play down this. They want to show that this is not an old boys club. This is them taking this seriously, and certainly Gerrard is. So but I mean, you can't help but thinking, you think that
that would carry in any league, Ali.
Absolutely. Absolutely no. Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Italy or Spain, or that. There's always that little bit of previous.
Absolutely. No, absolutely, Peter. I mean, like, let's put it this way. This fixture 2 years ago would not have had that added, spice, shall we say, of having these, former Premier League players, former internationals there. It's, Cristiano's case, still an international, of course. But listen, again, like Al Nassr seem to be finding ways, whenever they've come up against difficult situations. If it's not Cristiano who's leading, obviously the charge on all fronts, Talisca, as we mentioned, and in the cup, Mane have come through for them. So also on the same day that the Saudi World Cup bid was all but confirmed, another great piece of news for Saudi Arabia. Salem Al-Dawsari of Al-Hilal was named the Asian Footballer of the Year. A great achievement. Obviously, the world remembers him for that great goal against Argentina, the winning goal against Argentina in the World Cup. He also scored against Mexico. If you remember, Saudi lost that match and were eliminated. But we remember him as someone, of course, who's been brilliant for years and, central part of Al-Hilal's dominance at home and in Asia over the last few years. It's a great time to bring in our old friend, Paul Williams, the Asian football expert from Australia. Paul, how are you doing, mate?
I'm good, Ali. How are you, buddy?
I'm really well. Great to have you again. We're always happy to have you to discuss Saudi football and Asian football. Quite a lot to go through today. First of all, start off with Salem Al-Dawsari. I know you're a big fan. What do you think of the nomination?
Yeah, I've been a fan of Salem's for a number of years now. I think when you looked at the three players that were nominated for the award, of course, Salem Al-Muwazzali from Qatar and Matthew Leckie from here in Australia. I think when you looked at the respective 18 months that they had over the qualifying period, it was hard to go past Salem Al-Dawsari and what he had achieved. There was the Asian Champions League success with Al-Hilal. They, of course, made it to the Club World Cup final as well, scoring twice at a World Cup, the worldie to win, as you said, against Argentina. That really put his name on the international map. He was well known here in Asia already for his exploits, not only with Al-Hilal, but with the Saudi national team, sort of continentally within Asia as well. But that goal certainly put him on the global stage. And as I said, when you looked at what he had achieved over that period, he was absolutely a deserving and worthy winner, and a fine accolade for him to add to a glittering career that he's already had.
No, absolutely, Paul. Look, I mean, we're all great fans of his. I know you and I have spoken about him in the past. As you say, very well known in Asia. Him and Salem Al-Dawsari have been, brilliant over the last few years. Obviously, there's been some great players who performed. Son, obviously for South Korea, as you mentioned, Matthew Leckie in Australia. But I think this is well deserved, and great piece of news, and happened on the same day as well. Which brings us, nicely to the nomination. Obviously, slight disappointment in Australia, your country, Paul, where they were the other. They pulled out of the bidding process. But, as anyone who's listened to your podcast, The Asian Game, Paul, we know you're a big fan of Asian football. You're a big fan of Middle East football. You're constantly called for sort of strong integration from the Australians and in Asian football. And while there must be disappointment, there's also going to be a lot of positives, I feel, from your side, about what this might mean to the region and to Asia.
Of course, to have another World Cup in Asia again is fantastic for the region. It's only the third time that Asia will host a World Cup. Of course, we've had Japan and Korea 2002, of course, Qatar 2022 as well. So to have the World Cup back here in Asia again, it's fantastic for Asian football to be put on that stage. It's fantastic for golf football again to be put on that stage. Yeah, there's a buoyant mood here in Australia after the staggering success of the Women's World Cup, that we can host these tournaments in Australia and be a successful host of these tournaments. And Football Australia were very open in expressing their interest in hosting more major events. They had highlighted 3 that they were targeting, being the 2026 Women's Asian Cup, which ironically enough pits Australia against Saudi Arabia again, the 2029 Club World Cup, the expanded Club World Cup 32-team format for that one, and the 2034 FIFA World Cup. And they had preliminary discussions with some other nations in Southeast Asia. I know Indonesia in particular, they've been speaking to for the last 4 or 5 years about a potential joint bid. And of course, they've got the experience from hosting with New Zealand as well. So whether New Zealand and Oceania got dragged into that, or whether Australia went on their own with some partners in Southeast Asia, there was some confidence that, Australia could put together a successful bid. But when the news came through of the deal that had been done for 2030, which allowed Asia to come through and host 2034, and the readiness of Saudi Arabia's bid, I think it became evident that it would be foolish to go up against the Saudi Arabian bid. It would, given the support that Saudi Arabia had, the AFC came out straight away and said that, the Saudi Arabian bid has the full support of AFC. We've seen member nation after member nation throw their support behind the Saudi Arabian bid. And probably the death knell really was the potential partners that Australia had in Southeast Asia, the likes of Malaysia, Indonesia, had come out and put their support behind the Saudi Arabian bid. And Australia is not big enough to be able to go it alone for a 48-team, 104-game World Cup. We just don't have the available stadiums, infrastructure, cities to be able to host such a tournament. So the writing was on the wall. So it was as disappointing as it is from an Australian point of view. I think they are better placed to put their efforts into trying to get those other 2 tournaments, the Women's Asian Cup and the Club World Cup, which will both be enormous events in their own right. And of course, Australia's got the 2032 Olympics as well. So there's Olympic football in there. So there's no shortage of major football events coming up in Australia over the next decade. That the World Cup would have been the cherry on top of a very delicious cake. But perhaps we'll just have to wait a little bit longer to put that cherry on. Who knows what will happen down the track? But I think it's Saudi Arabia's World Cup now, and I think Asia will all get behind that.
That's great, Paul. Paul, I mean, for me, one of the best things about the World Cup in Qatar. I know you were there last year, and you were there, I think, for at Lusail Stadium when Saudi Arabia beat Argentina. For me, one of the best things about the World Cup was actually seeing stadiums full of, fans from the region, like Arab fans from the region. One of the things I've always said is that this was the first time you see stadiums, full of Tunisian fans, full of Moroccan fans, full of Saudi fans, Arab supporters from the region who's for them, the travel was not as much of an issue. In the past, whenever it's been in South America or Europe, you watch games and when Arab nations play, and it's just like, a few hundred fans here and there, and this was the first time we see Saudi Arabia would score a goal or Morocco would score a goal and the whole stadium would erupt. Great scenes and great for the fans, this has got, for me, it's one of the most important things. Tell us a little bit about, because you experienced it in Qatar, and obviously with an expanded World Cup by the time it comes in 2034, it's a long time away, but, this surely is like another major positive for to bring to bring it to the region is fantastic for the fans.
It's incredible. I mean, the atmosphere being there in Qatar last year was a special one, because I haven't been to previous World Cups, but it felt like this was a very different World Cup. This felt like an Arab World Cup for the Arab world that the rest of the world was invited to, whereas previous World Cups in different parts of the world, the atmosphere, you knew what you were going to get, but this was the atmosphere on the ground was very different, and in the stadiums as well. You walked through Souk Waqif in the evening, and there was Moroccan fans, Tunisian fans, Algerian fans, even though Algeria didn't qualify, Saudi fans everywhere, and they created an atmosphere that was incredibly unique, and I think that's what made the World Cup in Qatar so special and so different. It differentiated it from other World Cups that have been in the past. And now the Arab world gets to have that celebration again. They're going to have it in Morocco in 2030. They're going to have it in Saudi Arabia in 2034. So, 3 out of the next 4 World Cups, if you include Qatar, are going to be held in the Arab world, which I think is incredible for that part of the world. And you mentioned the expanded World Cup, the opportunity that affords, because, as I said, there were Algerian fans everywhere in Qatar, despite the fact they didn't actually qualify. In a 48-team World Cup, you would expect them to qualify. You would expect Egypt to qualify. The Emirates perhaps could qualify as well. Other Gulf nations from within Asia. It could even become a bigger celebration of Gulf and Arab culture with all these extra teams qualifying as well. So it stands to be a pretty special tournament for Arab football when it's held in Saudi Arabia.
Brilliant. Thanks, Paul. I wanted to finish off on a few comments on the AFC Champions League matches that are coming. I know it's a competition, again, to keep the Asia theme going. I know it's a competition you keep an eye on, very keenly. You speak about it in your podcast, and obviously we've got the Western Zone with all the Saudi involvement, but we've got obviously the Eastern Zone as well with your Australian teams, of course, playing there. First up, just very quickly on. We touched on this before. I think Al-Hilal, we mentioned quite a few times. They've got to be one of, alongside Al-Nassr, favorites or 2 of the favorites. A few comments on Al-Hilal going to Mumbai as well. I know you've got a few views on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a shame that Neymar picked up the injury when he did, because I'd spoken to some people involved at Mumbai City Football Club, and the excitement that they had for the fact that Neymar was going to be coming and playing in India was it was palpable. They showed some celebrations when the draw was done of the entire team celebrating when they were drawn to play against Neymar. It had generated such excitement. They'd moved it to a bigger stadium. Tickets were flying off the shelves, and then unfortunately Neymar goes to pick up that injury, and it's just a real shame. And Al-Hilal will be far too strong in that. We saw the 6-0 result when they played in Riyadh the other week. I'd expect something similar when they travel to Mumbai. The game of the week for me is going to be the reverse of Al-Hilal versus Al-Nassr. The first leg that they had in Riyadh a couple of weeks ago, a 4-3 thriller with some spectacular goals from Ronaldo. The reverse leg promises to be just as exciting when you look at some of the names that are involved, and you've got Ronaldo, Brozovic, Sadio Mane, Michael Olunga, Almoez Ali, Philip Coutinho. I mean, this is what the Champions League, the potential of the Champions League is all these mega stars from different parts of Asia coming together and playing against each other. Al-Hilal have moved this to the Khalifa Stadium, the biggest stadium there in Doha. I understand it's probably pretty much going to be close to a sellout as well. And if it's anything as half as good as what the first leg was between them, as I said, when it finished 4-3, then that's going to be an absolute cracker. So that's probably the game I'm most looking forward to in this upcoming round of matches, to see what Al Nassr and Al-Hilal do, because the Hilal actually need a win. They've started the Champions League. They haven't won any of their 3 games. They're a team, we saw them get smashed by Al-Hilal in the semi-finals last year. They're a team that should be making that stage of the competition. So to go winless in their first 3, the pressure's really on them, because if they lose this, they're out. There's no way they could recover from there. So they need a win in this game. Al Nassr will want to continue their winning form. So that shapes up to be an absolute blockbuster.
Yeah, we're all looking forward to that. Al Nassr have been absolutely brilliant recently. Ronaldo's flying. We keep mentioning it. Sadio Mane, Talisca, they're all playing well. So we're really looking forward to that. One very quick final message, Paul, on the Eastern zone in Asia. Who are your favourites?
Oh, it's hard to say at this point in time, because there's fluctuations in form between the teams, and I think the fact that this was the issue in West Asia, but now that they've switched the seasons, the fact that it's going to cross over seasons, so the group stage will be completed, and then East Asia will go into its off season. So entirely different squads, entirely different teams, could be new coaches by the time the knockout stages come around. Who knows what type of situation those clubs are going to be in. You're going to have the likes of Ulsan. You're going to have the likes of Urawa that you would expect to be up there as well. Kawasaki Frontale, despite their struggles in the J-League this season, they're looking good in the Champions League as well. I suspect it's going to be a Japanese or a Korean club that gets through. I struggle to see the Chinese clubs making any kind of imprint on this competition. Melbourne City are doing well. They're undefeated so far, 2 wins and a draw. They should make it through to the knockout rounds, but I don't know, again, if I can see them going any deeper than that. So I suspect it's going to be a Japanese or a Korean club. And the likes of Ulsan or Pohang, Kawasaki, Urawa, I suspect it's maybe going to come from one of those 4.
Fantastic stuff as always, Paul. Thank you so much, mate.
Wow, yeah, it's all happening, and it's set to go again this weekend, Ali. So what have we got to look forward to this weekend?
So, yeah, back to SPL action. Al-Shabaab welcome Al-Ittihad, another one of those Riyadh versus Jeddah clashes. Neither club has been consistent, as we've said many times this season. So it could actually even be a very good game. Could be quite an entertaining match. I think Al-Ittihad really would need to turn their form around if they are to stay in the title fight as quickly as possible. So I'm looking forward to that. I think that could be quite exciting. Al Nassr, I expect to get a comfortable 3 points at home against Khalid. Really, I mean, I can't see anything other than that, The most interesting match of the weekend, Pete, is probably Al-Hilal's visit to Al-Fateh, who, as we mentioned earlier, are in 4th place now. They're having a wonderful season, as are Al-Ta'awun, who we also mentioned earlier. Look, we hear that there's been unprecedented demand for tickets for this particular fixture. Obviously, Al-Hilal coming to town is always big news, but this is the first trip for Al-Hilal since obviously everything that's happened in the summer, and of course, Al-Fateh in 4th place. It looks to be like a really, really big game. I'm so pleased for fans of Al-Fateh. Again, they are there, but they're not just like a sideshow for the big boys. They're in 4th place themselves on merit, and also look, you're getting teams like Al-Fateh, Al-Ta'awun, and Ittifaq and others, they're getting eyes on them that they wouldn't have had before. This interest in the Saudi League, obviously focused on the big clubs, on the big players. But, one of the positives is that all these other clubs get to play against these top players, get to have their moments as well, really experiencing top quality football against these players, so it's not just they're not just a sideshow. And in Al-Fateh's case, like I said, being in fourth place, that for me is the best fixture of the weekend. Really looking forward to it.
Great, me too. What I'm looking forward to is you giving us a prediction.
As usual. Unfortunately, after all that, I can't see anything but a win for Al-Hilal. It would have been a lovely story, or it would be a lovely story, I should say, should Al-Fateh win. I'm not taking sides here. But look, Al-Hilal are on form. I don't think they're going to let slip at this point. I'll go 3-1 to Al-Hilal.
Okay, a whole win for Al-Fateh it is then, after Ali's prediction. Brilliant to have you with us as always. To be fair, you are getting back on track with becoming the prediction king again. And I think it would take some doing, but you never know with that big atmosphere that's going to be created. One thing is for sure, two things are for sure. One, it's going to be a great game with a great atmosphere. And two, is that we'll be back next week for another edition of Dawri. Until then, take care. And whoever your team is, we wish you the best of luck this weekend.